Is Satan actually Baal, and is he receiving worship as Allah inside the Kaaba right now as we speak? Let me tell you a story. It's the 5th century AD, and the lonely sand-swept deserts of Arabia have not yet been introduced to the religion of Islam. That would come 100 years later. No, the Arab world was much different before the Prophet Muhammad was ever even first mentioned. Jews, Christians, polytheists, Zoroasters, multiple different religious groups existed at the same time as these polytheists. This is really important to understand. I want you guys to try and think deeply about this. Arabian polytheism, which was the dominant practice amidst all the others, had a history locked deep with an ancient city in the region we know today as Mecca. This foundational city, which is still revered today, acted as the primary spiritual center of all the surrounding regions with their pagan worship practices. The cube, or the ancient house which is at the heart of the city, was actually used to house all of the local gods. 360 of them to be exact, and they would honor these gods by encircling the shrine in a lunar-like procession. This practice would later be taken by Islam, which is really quite interesting if you think about it. Islam, meaning submission to God. But my question to you is, which God? Manaf, Manat, Dushar. These are but a few of the names of the various idol gods worshipped in the Black Cube, which would have been placed adorning the inside of the shrine and along the outer rim of the cube for their ritualistic purposes. Now, each Lunar New Year, the various warring tribal groups would lay down their arms and make the lengthy pilgrimage to the shrine, where they would encircle it, offering sacrifices and penances to their favorite gods, which some scholars say represent the 365 days of the year. Encirclement, prostration, pilgrimage. I think you guys are starting to get the picture of what I'm trying to paint. But even with all this context, the mystery starts to get even deeper when you actually look into the history of the gods worshipped in the Black Cube. There really is only one singular deity that stands out in particular amidst all the rest, and his name is the ancient god Hubal. Hubal is a very interesting character indeed, because he is considered by most scholars to actually be the chief god of the Kaaba at the time. Some would even argue that the Kaaba was fully dedicated to Hubal himself. You can see more images of this god found right here with the same black stone that is venerated today in modern Mecca. But here's where it really starts to take a dark turn for the worst. Because when you actually look at the research, and believe me, I did, almost all scholars generally conclude that Hubal was an imported deity from the region of Syria, or the land of the Nabateans. Hubal was at once the presiding god in the temple, and the principal deity of the Koreshites, who were its guardian. The preeminence of this idol was evinced by the fact that before it, the casting of lots with arrows took place. This scholar says it was probably introduced when the sanctuary of the Koresh tribe was converted into the pantheon of the whole of Arabia. The name Hubal remains a mystery. The opinion that it is synonymous with the Babylonian and Syrian Baal, or Bel, is supported by the testimony of Arab authorities, according to whom Hubal was originally imported from Syria. Syria, the pinnacle of ancient Baal worship. This city sets up the foundation of many long-dead empires. It is considered to be one of the most celebrated ancient sanctuaries in the world, built upon by both Greeks and Romans. The Phoenicians being its originators, these were men and women who believed in the Canaanite pantheon, took Baal as their chief astronomical deity. Could it be any coincidence that scholars agree Hubal, the ancient lunar deity of the Kaaba, has a past connecting it to Baal. There's a story in the Gospel of Mark of these Pharisees coming to Jesus and saying he is casting out devils by the power of Satan. This is how he responds. He is possessed by Beelzebul. By the ruler of demons he cast out demons. So he called them and spoke to them in parables. How can Satan cast out Satan? We see right here that Jesus is connecting the prince of demons himself to Baal, which means there's only one connection we can make. Baal is Satan. This is where we get to put all the puzzle pieces together, and believe me, they fit quite perfectly. Because Hubal, having a direct tie to the pagan god Baal of the Canaanites, was not only considered the chief god of the Kaaba at the time, but Hubal was actually worshipped as Allah by the forefathers of Muhammad. Ibn Kathir, one of Islam's most renowned historians, speaks of a certain forefather of Muhammad digging a well in a region called Zamzam. This was probably just a neighboring region outside the province of Mecca itself. According to the story, this sparked outrage among the neighboring Qurayshi tribe, which remember were the protectors of Hubal and the Black Cube, who ultimately viewed this act as a total provocation of their land and demanded retribution. Hearing all of this, understandably, Muhammad's tribal ancestor becomes totally stressed out by the situation, and he vows to sacrifice his 10 sons to God or Allah at the Kaaba in order to pay the blood price. It is claimed that when Ibn al-Muttalib received such opposition from Quraysh over the digging of Zamzam, he vowed that if 10 sons were born to him, who grew up and protected him, he would sacrifice one of them for Allah at the Kaaba. Allah at the Kaaba can only have meant one thing to the forefather of Muhammad at this time, who sought to abate this god's anger through the death of one of his sons. And we know that he could only be speaking of one specific deity himself. Hubal.